How you doing, Steph? Right on.
Wonderful.
Help yourself to a microphone. It would be really wild if you also said pineapple shit pit at some point.
Oh my goodness.
I was born in Ontario, grew up in Saskatchewan, and have spent my entire adult life in Alberta. I spent my summers growing up crossing the Beaver Dam to play in our tree fort at home, hunting for chanterelle mushrooms to go with our moose steak dinners in Ontario, and fishing for northern pike for supper in Saskatchewan. I wasn't connected to nature. Nature was a way of life. I now have 2 kids of my own, and I'm doing my best to pass that way of life down to them. Here we were graced by the presence of a polyphemus moth in our front yard, tattered by poplar fuzz. I excitedly shared it with the kids, carefully removed the poplar fuzz, and we watched it fly away together. This past summer, my 2-year-old daughter caught her very own first pike while she was sitting on my lap when the fish bit the line, so that counts as her first fish. The girl loves eating fish for supper, so I made sure to explain the connection to her. It was then very important to her to watch her grandpa fillet that fish. Even the other day, we were flipping through photos on my phone, and Abby exclaimed, "Fish, we eat it," when we came across this photo. She's gained an understanding of nature and how we fit in that picture. This connection is going to be immemorable, but foundational. The week that we came back from Abby's big fishing trip, Nature Alberta was preparing our final grand finale Family Nature Night. Family Nature Nights connect young families and newcomers to Canada through guided nature experiences in local parks. Everything was wet and wild at our grand finale event, including the trout tank driven up by Cold Lake's mayor from their fish hatchery. We welcomed 160 participants for some pretty amazing nature programming. After processing all of the guests with some amazing volunteers, I heard the most amazing sound. I would try and reenact that sound for you tonight, but I fear I would get pulled off stage thinking I had gone completely bonkers. Just imagine 50 children screaming and laughing, exclaiming things like, "It's so slimy and I love it!" The screams coming from there was nothing short of magical. I had goosebumps and I was on the other side of the field. I know screams being the mother of 2 toddlers, and these screams were the sounds of children making lasting, positive memories. I had to go see for myself. I rushed over to the trout touch tank and found adults and children of all ages all huddled around buckets of rainbow trout, squealing with excitement as they tried to touch or even pick up their slippery fish. Most of these kids didn't have a grandpa fisherman who connected them to the fish on their plate. I felt a great wave of gratitude to be delivering such a meaningful and important program to the community. Connecting these kids to nature is inspiring the next generation of conservationists and young naturalists. I walked down the trail to the pond dipping station. Families were learning about testing the water quality of lakes and ponds with the Alberta Lake Management Society's executive director. Brad was explaining what these test results meant for life in the lake. Other families were huddled around tables keying out species of aquatic plants. Families were pond dipping and looking through buckets of water trying to find these creatures from the pond and scooping them up in these 3D viewers. And they were looking over their cards to see what these amazing creatures were called. I walked back up to the live reptile and amphibian presentation where they were teaching kids about the difference between cold-blooded and warm-blooded creatures with the use of a phone app. Colin of the Alberta Amphibian and Reptile Conservancy is holding a turtle or a tortoise. If you ask him the difference, you'll be there all night talking about cultural differences, which is just fascinating. And then he holds up the presumed turtle in front of Alyssa and actually shows the kids that this creature is in fact cold-blooded. Technology is so amazing nowadays. Exploring nature can be enriched by simply uploading a photo to an app and finding out what species that is. I headed back to the registration table to compare notes with my assistant, Abigail. "I touched my first fish," she told me. I was flabbergasted. Fish have been a part of my life since my childhood, likely even my memorable childhood, like my Abby. That's when it hit me. Abigail is an educated, intelligent, experienced nature and science coordinator who has been teaching families to connect with nature and care for nature. And she had just then touched her first fish. Everyone's connection to nature is different, and there is so much to explore. Connecting with nature is not a one and done. It's not, oh, I've connected to nature, glad that's off my to-do list. No, it's an ongoing adventure. Nature never ceases to amaze me with new experiences, like running into this porcupine in the woods. That's why I think that the work that Nature Alberta is doing is so important. Not only do we connect kids to nature, we also support a group of 40 nature clubs all across the province who are working to connect our community by a love of nature. They're out there checking boxes of birds and planting native plants and counting butterflies and everything you can imagine. I had the pleasure of guiding a nature walk for volunteers and experts who helped us with family nature nights. And I can tell you that these are my people. They get me. They're excited about my visiting Polyphemus moth story and tell me similar stories. I encourage each and every one of you to look for your local nature club. Nature Alberta's website has a whole list of them, and find one that will allow you to connect with nature. Nature gives us so much to be fascinated about. So get out there, observe, investigate, and explore nature.